I'm Sarah Peretta, and I'm in finance for an eye care company. I like Progress Texas because it supports progressive values in Texas, where it's really critical.
It's Monday, January 26, 2026, and this is the Progress Texas Daily Dispatch. Rapid response on the breaking news stories Texas progressives need to know. I'm Chris Mosier. Greetings from the deep freeze. Here's hoping this finds you warm and safe. Chances are this Monday morning you've spent a lot of time absorbing the shock of a second shooting death at the hands of ICE in Minneapolis. You've watched thousands of those community members brave much harsher cold than what we have here in Texas to show up in opposition. The horrifying death of Alex Pretty. On his knees, shot from behind by a masked federal goon, shot 9 more times as the rest of that goon squad overreacted out of incompetence, while news has also spread that the third bullet to hit Renee Good a couple of weeks ago came through her passenger window and went through her head. The wanton and callous nature of these killings, a full demonstration of the regard these agents have for the citizens they are theoretically making safer by terrorizing the roofers and cooks and children in their midst. That regard is zero. Regard for the safety of anyone in Minneapolis by ICE and their overlords is zero, and that is on even fuller display in their lies about the entire matter, lies that are proving too much for even Republican types to buy. Molly Wilhelm at the Houston Chronicle says GOP Congressman Michael McCaul, likely drawing courage from the fact that he's stepping down, took to Twitter yesterday to call for an investigation. But by whom? Federal officials under Donald Trump have blown any semblance of credibility in their patently absurd messaging about the Alex Pretty murder, and any investigation they might pursue would be just as believable at this point. Meanwhile, they're blocking local and state officials in Minneapolis from investigating a horrific incident that happened on their own turf. There's horror on our own turf in Texas as well. The Quorum reports Scott Braddock sharing video from immigration attorney Eric Lee that appears to show the screams of women and children from within the walls of the migrant detention facility at Dilley, just southwest of San Antonio. The Texas Tribune says that facility has been the site of the protest of dozens of immigrant families over this weekend. They talked to Lee, who said that detainees inside the facility had begun protesting the detainment of 5-year-old Liam Conejo Ramos, dragged there last week with his father from Minneapolis, and the treatment of people protesting ICE presence across the country. Lee tells the Trib, quote, "While I was in the waiting room, I heard guards come out and say, 'Everybody out right now.' They looked white-faced. They were very concerned, obviously, by whatever was happening," unquote. Clearly an uprising of some degree inside this facility, the conditions of which Neha Desai, managing director at the National Center for Youth Law, has said are, quote, "fundamentally unsafe for anyone, let alone young children." Since the reopening of family detention, hundreds of families, including babies and toddlers, have been subjected to substandard medical care, degrading and harsh treatment, and extremely prolonged times in custody, unquote. All of this is reverberating in Washington, D.C., as Jared Gans at The Hill puts it. The odds of a second federal government shutdown over just a couple of months have grown dramatically as the bill funding the Department of Homeland Security, including $10 billion in additional funding for ICE, opposed by most Democrats in the U.S. House last week over the Renee Good killing, but passed in the House with the help of 7 Democrats, including South Texas's Henry Cuellar and Vicente Gonzalez, now faces harsher odds in the Senate as Democrats in that chamber appear more united against sustaining ICE's assault on the American people. We'll be watching that. There is polling relevant to recent developments in Minneapolis. Brand new YouGov polling done after the Alex Pretty killing on Saturday shows public support for abolishing ICE has reached an all-time high, with more Americans now favoring the elimination of the agency than opposing it. 46% support versus 41% opposition. The Alex Pretty killing itself is seen as unjustified by 48% of respondents, which seems low, but a figure that climbs to 63% among those who have viewed video evidence of the incident. 58% of the public now views ICE and Border Patrol tactics as too forceful. Disapproval is deeply polarized along party lines. 76% of Democrats and 47% of independents support doing away with ICE, while 73% of Republicans want to keep them around. Notably, though, Republican support for elimination of ICE has risen to 19%, the highest level recorded this month. Overall, the data suggests that direct exposure to agency tactics through video is a primary driver in the growing national movement to protest or dismantle federal immigration enforcement. Stop a second and imagine what the killers of Renee Good and Alex Preddy might have gotten away with had there not been several people shooting video from several angles at those key moments, both of which developed in mere seconds. It turns out that camera in your pocket is your most valuable weapon at this point, as rumors of a coming ICE escalation in Austin build as they continue to terrorize neighborhoods in Dallas and Fort Worth and Houston and San Antonio and elsewhere in Texas. Be the eyes and ears of a frightened nation. At Progress Texas, we encourage vigilance and action. Work those cameras, people. Democracy dies in darkness. This weekend did see a big moment in Texas politics as Senate candidates Jasmine Crockett and James Tallarico met in debate for the first time on Saturday during the AFL-CIO's COPE convention in Georgetown. Bridget Bowman at NBC News says both addressed the developments out of Minneapolis just hours after Alex Preddy was gunned down. Crockett saying, quote, "We are not looking at politics as usual. Just today, we had another person gunned down in the streets of Minneapolis. And so for anyone that believes we are going to be able to respond to this in a normal way, I think they've got it wrong," unquote. Tallarico's take, quote, "ICE shot a mother in the face. ICE kidnapped a 5-year-old boy. ICE executed a man in broad daylight on our streets just this morning. It's time to tear down this secret police force and replace it with an agency that is actually going to focus on public safety," unquote. That debate is actually a good distraction from the doom and gloom that may have set the tone as you wait out this freeze. It's a good listen, and it's one click back on this podcast feed. Thanks again to our friends at Texas AFL-CIO for letting us come play. With everything that's happening, we're all looking for a way to take action, and in 2 parts of Texas, we get to go vote. Weather permitting, of course. Early voting is underway in both Tarrant County State Senate District 9 and Houston's Congressional District 18, but the freeze has had an effect on early voting in both of those cases. In Tarrant County, veteran union leader and Democrat Taylor Ramette faces MAGA darling and Patriot Mobile technocrat Lee Wamsgans to fill a vacant state Senate seat held for decades by Republicans, a major flip opportunity. The freeze cost Tarrant County voters a day of early voting yesterday as polls were closed due to the weather on Sunday. But Gabby Bailey at Community Impact says many polling locations will be open today, Monday, as of 10 a.m., with the exception of North Park YMCA and the Saginaw Public Library. They're both closed again today. See the show notes for a link on the current status of those voting locations in Tarrant County. And in Houston CD18, which has gone without representation in the U.S. House since the death of Congressman Sylvester Turner all the way back in March of 2025, voters face a choice between Democrats Amanda Edwards and Christian Menifee. Adam Zuvanich at Houston Public Media says the Harris County Clerk's Office has closed its 17 early voting locations both yesterday and again today. And the Texas Civil Rights Project, on behalf of nonprofit organizations Houston Justice and Pure Justice, has filed a lawsuit asking a judge to extend the CD9 early voting period, which is scheduled to conclude tomorrow for 2 days beyond the freeze later this week. We'll watch that. Election day for both of these runoffs is Saturday, January 31st. A special election runoff in a midterm year in the middle of bad weather is likely to see very low turnout, which means your vote counts huge. Get out there and get it done. For the rest of us, the March primary looms, and now's the time to confirm your registration. Your deadline to be registered for the primary is Monday, February 2nd. That is 1 week from today, and early voting in the primary starts on February 17th. All of this almost here. See the show notes for a Texas 2026 March primary ballot form from the Texas Tribune that you can use right now with your home address to see who will be on the ballot in the primary in which you choose to vote. Everything you need to be sure your registration's in order can be found at govotetexas.org. And keep in mind, once again, the U.S. Postal Service has declared that they may not postmark a piece of mail on the same day it's dropped off to them. The later you wait to send in your mail-in ballot, the more likely it is to be rejected. If you're voting by mail, you need to get that done as soon as possible. Our mission at Progress Texas is to improve and save Texans' lives by acting on our shared, bold, progressive values, and that starts with countering the billionaire and corporate-funded disinformation machine. While we enjoy the support of hundreds of partners, chances are that you, dear listener, haven't joined the team yet. If you're a regular, let's get you on board like Christine Huber, Loreto Izaguirre, and Jeremy Sutka all have. We appreciate all of you very much. Join them and the team at progresstexas.org. We're making efforts to expand our top-rated podcast network to include Spanish-speaking media to increase the reach of our progressive messages daily. See the show notes for a link to make your donation towards our expansion into Spanish media today. That's the Progress Texas Daily Dispatch for this Monday, January 26, 2026. Links to all these original stories can be found in our show notes. Progress Texas is an independent, nonprofit, rapid response media organization. While campaigns come and go, we're the permanent home for progressive media and action in the Lone Star State. I'm Chris Mosier. Thanks for listening. Stay safe and warm, and we'll see you again tomorrow morning.